Look at what you could have won. Stay out of the black and in the red. You get nothing in this game for 2 in the bed. This is your bus fare home. Showbiz we'd like. Absolute gold delivered to us on Sunday evenings.
Please welcome your host for this evening, Mr. Jim Bowen.
Sir Jim Bowen, it should have been Sir. Wow, what a host. This is the next incongruence of Bullseye that flipped our expectations and delivered everything the wrong way round. The opposite of what we would expect from a game show. Your game show host in the UK in the 1980s, they were incredible with the banter. They put the contestants at ease. They looked good and they could improvise at the drop of a hat when something went wrong, right? Personified by Bruce Forsyth on The Generation Game, and also was not displayed by Ted Rogers on 3-2-1. God, I used to hate that show, didn't you? Rubbish. But Jim on Bullseye, he'd never really seemed comfortable in his skin, did he? Actually, I've read his autobiography, Right Place, Right Time, and he said there were 8 cameras in the studio, someone speaking in his ear, and he's always looking down for his tape on the floor, for his marks. And his wife said that your natural persona is not shining through. His craft that he had honed in the Northern Working Men's Clubs, his comedy, he said it never could come through because he just had so much going on. But yeah, his suits. We would expect the host to look great. He looked dated, even in the 80s, didn't he? With his Farrah suits, those greys and beiges. I don't even know if there are words that describe the colours of the suits and shirt combos that Jim was wearing, and his amazing signet ring and gold watch when he was counting out the money, those big brown tenors. Awesome. What a time capsule. And in those early shows from 1981, wow, I'll put a link in the description, because that first show and the second show, he's explaining the rules in such a complicated manner. And to be honest, they hadn't really worked out the format completely. It wasn't slick.
And you see when you see this super board that it's not a normal dartboard. It's got a difference. Instead of having numbers, it's got subjects. And an extension of the board shows us that within the subjects we've given values of £20, £10, £30 and £50 for the bull. And that's translated to the dartboard, where we've got £30 questions, £10 questions, and £20 questions. And to get the money, all we've got to do is land the dart in the bed, and that particular question has got to be answered correctly. All right? Now, once a subject has been darted, once it's been hit, it goes out of the game. All right? Let's get on with the game. Right, now we're into it now. We've done the running order, we're all settled, aren't we? And it's Alan's there now, and Alan, look at the board and choose a category.
And he seems at odds with the show, and he seems at odds with himself. But isn't that the magic? Isn't that why we kind of loved it? Because it was that car crash TV? It also says in the autobiography, the head of light entertainment at ATV, who were the producers of the first series in 1981, he brought them into his office after the first 2 shows and said he'd burnt the first 2 episodes. Are they still out there? That's the holy grail of UK TV game shows, isn't it? Maybe he didn't burn them. Maybe those shows are out there, because the first episode that was ever aired was the 3rd one they filmed. And even after the 3rd and 4th show, John Schofield, the head of ATV, brought them back into his office and said, look, I can't keep burning episodes, but they're still rubbish. Please just do the best you can to make it better. Jim was always petrified that he was going to get fired. You can imagine that that didn't help his performance either. And at the end of series 1, John Schofield brought them all back into his office again and said, I don't know how and I don't know why, but for the last 6 weeks you've been in the top 10 of shows on ITV. They didn't know that they'd captured lightning in a bottle. Isn't it because we like fallibility? Us Brits, we don't want that American slickness. We want a host that's a little bit of a fall guy, don't we? That is self-deprecating, that can make mistakes. People like us on the television. Jim Bowen was, of course, absolutely a huge part of the success of Bullseye. 20 million people watching every week. Was it because they just wanted to see what he did next and how bad he was? Some of my favourites are how he's putting the contestants at ease, seemingly, in quotation marks. My favourite, absolute favourite, is the couple that came on from South Wales. Jim, where are you from? Tredegar, South Wales. And Jim said, well, you know what he's going to say. You know it already, don't you? Jim said, South Wales, where men are men and sheep are careful. How did he get away with it? In front of 20 million people, he called him a sheep shagger on national television. Unbelievable.
Are you relaxed?
Yes.
From where?
Tredegar in South Wales.
Tredegar. That's where men are men and sheep are careful.
You just can't imagine the outcry if that happened today, right? He would be cancelled immediately. The show would be taken off the air. He would never work again. It's such a time capsule. Incredible stuff. Another one of my favourites is two Geordies coming back, and they had £270. They were the third couple that came back. And Jim said, now you've got £270. That's a lot of money to two Geordies, isn't it? Absolutely beautiful. Is that the reason why we were watching? Were we watching because his jokes weren't funny? And we just couldn't believe it. There's an episode where he comes down the steps. I think it's 1982 even, or 1983. It's not right at the beginning. And his monologue basically consists of saying hello and then saying, one viewer wrote in to say that we'd got a question wrong, and then he explains the question and what the right answer was, and that's it. There's no joke, there's no bants. They just apologise because of one reader's letter.
Welcome to another edition of Bullseye. Thanks very much for watching us. And thanks for dropping us a line when sometimes we go wrong. One of the questions in a recent show was, well, the answer to one of the questions was behind closed doors. And we awarded the points and the pounds. We did know, in fact, it was Washington behind closed doors, but thanks for showing an interest. And well, that's lovely. Now, and that's another thing I've got to say.
They were getting things wrong all the time. That's why we loved it. But something that really perplexes me about Jim Bowen, and I couldn't find it out in any research or in his autobiography, is why was he so obsessed with the TV region that people came from? Whenever he was introducing new contestants, he would always say the TV region that they came from, wouldn't he? Here they are from Granada Television, from Tyne Tees Television, from HTV region. Who cares? No one. No one cares what TV region they are from. The town? Yes, good. Newcastle, Bolton, Yorkshire, wherever. But I don't care what TV production company is running the roost up there. Why, Jim? Why were you concerned about the TV region? If anybody knows that one, please let me know in the comments. I just couldn't find any information on that. But I think there's an insight in the autobiography which explains the magic of Jim Bowen on Bullseye, because he was a bit hapless and didn't know what was going on, seemingly. In his national service, he was in the RAOC, the Royal Artillery Ordnance Corps, and he was in charge of ammunition. Believe it or not, that's unusual, isn't it, for Jim Bowen? And there was one time that he was having to load cargo to be shipped off to the Middle East. Sir Anthony Eden in a spot of bother over there, but Jim Bowen got into a spot of bother with that cargo, because he and no one else in his squad had noticed that the age of the shells differed by up to 15 years. If a shell gets old, the propulsion doesn't work as well. So if you're firing new artillery shells, they're going a certain distance, and then if you put a shell in that's 15 years older, it will fall short of the target and maybe fall on British troops. So because of that terrible mistake, he got incredibly reprimanded by his superior, who was called Ben Johnson, not the famous sprinter, and he got sent to Aldershot to train as a PT instructor in the army. So even though he made this mistake, he basically got away with it, and he fell on his feet because he was retrained as a PT instructor. And then his first job after the army, he was a PE teacher in schools. Can you imagine Jim Bowen being your PE teacher? He smoked 80 cigarettes a day. But then again, I suppose every PE teacher smoked 80 cigarettes back in those days, didn't they? But isn't that so Jim Bowen? Just trundling along, making mistakes, but somehow getting away with it and actually turning into a success. Absolutely lovely. And it was Jim's job to not only make the contestants feel at ease, but also the star players when they came on, the professionals. And that's the next incongruence about Bullseye. And I'll speak about it in this video because I know the secret as to why those star players were throwing crappy darts. And just while you're here, before you go, just click subscribe because I speak in all my videos about intriguing questions, UK nostalgia and heartwarming stories. So grab your hat, let's have a chat in the next one and I'll see you there. Toodaloo.